Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? I am fine. Well, I just wanted to take this opportunity. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say, if Whiteheart's tune "How Many Times" um, was not enough, I have another one to follow. This one I'm talking about is what David Meece was talking about in several interviews and in a testimony about why, when he was losing his father in real life, he needed to talk to the Lord in forgiving him and of his father, which of course was 70 times 7. And by the way, I'm actually talking about he needed to talk to God, asking um, the Lord to forgive David as to why he needed to come to terms with his father, on which he did not have a good relationship before. Now, here's the reason why. When David used to go to concerts or would tell a story, he would write something personal on the insensitive side of what his real life father did in order for young David to get the blame. He knew, to the best of my understanding, and yes, he grew up in a home with an alcoholic, abusive father, allowing this little boy to grow up in frustration. Not silence, but in frustration. Yet he wanted for everything to be back to normal, in hoping his father would shape up. When this dream didn't happen, being 10 years old prior to his parents getting divorced, he calmly turned to playing the piano and growing up, playing for one of the best concerts ever, all around the state of Texas. I mean, nobody could ever look at this future aspiring artist who would play for the concerts neither one of us have been familiar with at the time, who grew up hating his father all the time. And really, that happens to sons, most particularly daughters too, both in the movies, on television, and also in real life, who don't know how to follow ground rules their own father lays down for them, especially when they indulge in alcohol. That occasionally happens now, but I don't see any father trying to consume all that for real. Now, back in 2010, he shared his testimony as to how God, and as I have said it many times to my own friends, had taken away all that anger, that hatred and anger out of David, because he didn't want to hate his father and didn't know how to. He also prayed the same prayer many times, that God had taken away all this hatred and anger out of David. Thank God for David's song, the one he wrote 70 times 7 with Gino Vanilli, a popular song at the time, and his brother Joseph and Roy Freeland. All right. It was also a song that talked about David, just like I said, who needed to forgive his father, whom he really hated, and really said to young David the phrase, "You're worthless," years before his father died, before he went on to get professional help in the midst of his touring and recording. Also in the same situation that David Meece was in. The song in itself also had something to do with Gino Vanilli, one of the writers, who himself had a volatile relationship with his own father too. I can understand that too, as to why living in the home of a male parent may be overprotective, may involve some harshness in there, and sometimes fathers can be insensitive and rude, but hey, that's the way it is, you know. Anyway, it was not only the number one song in the CCM music charts that year, it was also the number one album, which was David's chronology he had for Myrrh, that had several of his greatest hits of the past decade. Now, in conclusion, I want to say, as far as the subject of forgiveness is concerned, especially when us kids attempt to forgive our parents for what they said or did, even if the past generation has done it before another generation would, it may be extremely hard. When it's actually good therapy for you and for everybody, and for them, for everybody. Now, in the fifth commandment, it said you should honor and respect your parents as part of the foundation for what you learn to relate to others. But with David, on the other hand, his father had passed away, and at the time of this recording, he was very busy, went to therapy, was talking to God as to why he needed to forgive his father for talking to Jesus about this. And when he was at the funeral, and that was when he was at the funeral, I heard something in there. David was so glad his father was God. It turned itself into a comedy for him, whilst with the others it turned into drama. He really said it in an insensitivity way about as to why he's glad his father was God. Anyway, enough said on that tune. It had worked, and his miracle has changed everything right around the same time he was praying. And thank God for David Meece, who had to overcome the many obstacles of turning his back on his father, whose father broke boundaries with the family. But David had found a way to talk to God in forgiving him for what his father really did, and to what David did himself, obviously. I mean, after all, you could take things, you might rub things the wrong cheek or take it too personally, but really it happens to the best of us. Now, and obviously, when most people got to listen to David Meece's music in the 80s, they were the bomb. I mean, David Meece was the king of Christian music. He could play piano, he could tell you a story, he could play dance pop music all day long, and not only that, he could also be a great father to his kids, as in the direct opposition of his own father. And in conclusion, David loves Jesus and his family. Amen.